Welcome to Accelerate OC, the only show focused on the people leading innovation in Orange County. Join our host, Kerry Ransom, in his conversations with the trendsetters, entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders here, because it's time to Accelerate OC.
Good morning. Welcome to Accelerate OC. I'm Kerry Ransom, and thanks always to our engineer, Paul, for making me and my guests sound so good. Today's episode is sponsored by OC4 Venture Studio, which is a new tech startup company building platform and community here in Orange County that I have the privilege of being a part of. If you are looking for help with your startup or opportunities to work with the next generation of entrepreneurs and high growth companies, or you're just curious and want to be part of the Orange County startup community, you can go to oc4v.com to learn more. I am really happy finally to get my friend Jeff Bocan here on Accelerate OC today. And before we get to hear from Jeff, hear some of his great stories and wisdom, let me tell you a little bit about him. So he is currently a partner at OKAPI Venture Capital, which is actually his second stint as a VC. And OKAPI is one of the most prominent venture firms here in Orange County and really even in Southern California. He, prior to that, had joined one of his investments when he was previously a VC, a company here called Mofi. And that is actually what got him here to Orange County, I believe, several years ago. And he helped join the senior team there and lead Mofi as it went from about 10 million in revenue when he got there to over 250 million in revenue. And then eventually he helped execute a strategic sale in 2016, so a few years ago, to a publicly listed company called Zag. And before Mofi, as I mentioned, he was also had been a venture capitalist for, I think it was about 13 years at a company or a firm called Berengia, where he sourced or led at several of the investments in the dozens across their really large portfolio. So over his career, Jeff's invested in over 40 companies. He's sat on or been a part of 30 or more boards. So he has extensive experience and has seen a lot from a range of examples to draw from. And he also had a time where he was a content creator. He was a contributing blogger at a point to the Huffington Post. So we may have to talk a little bit about that today. He's been really active here in the Orange County startup community since he got here over the last several years. And I've really enjoyed a lot of the conversations and the relationship that we've been able to build. And, we have a unique relationship as well because we got to coach youth basketball against each other as we both have sons that are very similar age. And that's always fun to be able to do things at that level in the community too. Jeff, it's great to have you here on the show today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kerry. Really happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get to the starting line. So please, I know some folks probably are aware of OKAPI, but, share with the audience the story of OKAPI and where the firm is and focus areas today.
Sure. So at a high level, we are a seed stage focus fund focused on investing in tech companies. So it's usually software-driven companies, but we do some consumer companies as well. And we invest about $500,000 to $1.5 million on our first check out of the gate. We are usually the first institutional round that a company has done. They've usually raised some friends and family money, or they bootstrapped it pretty far. Maybe they had some angel funding, and then we will do that next round. Where if it's $500,000 to it could be a $4 million round with us doing a substantial chunk of that. We really focus on companies in Southern California, and I'll come back into the kind of origin story of OKAPI because it was really centered around Orange County. We've since expanded to cover more of Southern California, but of our current fund that we're investing from, we've made 18 investments in the last less than 3 years.
That's amazing. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's been good, and all of them are in Southern California, from Santa Barbara down to San Diego. And then we actually have one in San Luis Obispo, but we count them in. They're kind of like
Santa Barbara-ish.
Yeah. They're a little bit of an orphan in the middle of the state, but we will count that one as Southern California. It's non-Bay Area, but that's a lot of the focus for us on the investment front. The firm, we're one of the longest standing venture firms in Southern California. The firm started in 2005 and actually spun out of Octane. And it was kind of really...
I don't think a lot of people probably know that or remember that, but yes, I know that well.
Yeah, so it got going at that time. So a lot of the original backers of Octane were some of the CEOs of tech companies in this area, and they thought it was great that they're doing some of the community building, but there was no capital. And to be honest, there's still a shortage of capital. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I think there's less now than there was in 2005.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's still a challenge. But there was a lack of an early stage focused venture firm here in Orange County, so they created it. It was from scratch. So it was a couple of the CEOs of Western Digital, Connexent, Edwards Life Sciences, ABO Medical, but like some of these folks got together and they ended up pulling my partner, Mark Averett, out of Intel. He had been living in Orange County, working for Intel for a while, and was kind of advising them on setting up this venture firm because he was doing a lot of investments and M&A work for Intel at that time. And he was, in touch with them. This group was trying to loop Intel into this effort to kind of get this fund up and going. And Mark said, look, Intel's not going to support it, but I'll do what I can to help. And that turned into them saying, look, will you actually just run this? And for him, it was really compelling. He was just excited about the opportunity here. And you got it going in 2005. And that first fund was focused half of its investments on healthcare and half on technology. We've since kind of moved away from doing healthcare. Mark brought in his partner Sharon Stevenson from Domain Associates in the early days, and on the first couple funds she did the healthcare deals. What we found is that healthcare is just, we have small funds, they're sub $50 million funds. The medical device space is very capital intensive and it takes a really long time to
Certainly
get your products to
relative
market.
to tech, yeah.
Yes, and if you are writing checks, $1, $2, $3 million, you end up being in a position where you're really passive in the companies. They're going to raise 50 to 100 million, and that really wasn't our model. Was to kind of be along for the ride late in the stages of the company. So we've shifted completely to technology investments. So we're investing from our third fund now and moving on to our fourth, and we can talk about that later. But now it's 100% tech focused. And the first fund invested 100% in Orange County, but it only did 10 deals, in a 5-year period. And this is, we'll talk more about it, but 15 years ago, there wasn't as many startups. There wasn't many startups around here. So there was a little less to choose from. There's a lot more now, but they really struggled deploying a fund just in Orange County and doing it successfully. The fund did okay, but not great, that first fund. The second fund broadened its reach to cover more of Southern California, still did about half the deals in Orange County, and that fund's done phenomenal. We'll talk about some of the things later, but CrowdStrike was our really big win that we had in that fund.
That's an Orange County started company that sort of moved its headquarters at a point to
that was almost
Northern
more marketing.
California, but it was more, I agree. It was more of a marketing. It seemed to be more of a marketing.
Yeah. But and cybersecurity is a real strength in this area, and we can talk about that further too. But that was a huge win for us in Fund 2, and with Fund 3, we've continued to focus on Southern California. We've done about a third of our deals in Orange County directly. So we're focused on the region. I want to do more in Orange County. I live here in Newport Beach, so the shorter I have to, if I can stay off the 405, I'd be really happy.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to do more deals here.
Well, there's a natural, obviously, we've talked about this off the air, but there's a natural connection between what we're doing at OC4 on trying to address that supply side of getting more companies up and going that are venture ready.
Yep.
And so that's the great hope, is that we have more of that lineage of partners and capital in place so that we can take a company all the way through. That's what's obviously worked in other ecosystems.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really essential. There's this continuum of resources, not only capital, but consulting and experience, and even just the real estate element, and having space where people can one collaborate with other people easily, but also just not spend a huge amount of money in those early days when you want as many of your dollars to go into product as you can and not into rent and other kind of overheads. And having all of those pieces in place are really important. And we have elements of that here in the beginning seeds, but we have a ways to go.
That's right. That's right. And I think we all know that, but there's I think, greater attention. At least I've been here 16 years, and there's a greater attention to those details and those needs, I think, now than at least what I've seen previously. So that's, I think, encouraging, where maybe in the past people thought they could point to one thing and say, this is what we need. We need capital and everything else will be good. I think there's finally a recognition that the disconnectedness and the siloed activities, there's a lot of well-intended people, well-intended activities that are happening, but without that connectivity, it's just held things down from a scale and repeatability. And I see people spending inordinate amounts of time on finding an attorney or recruiting one employee who is important, but that return on effort and time, and you talked about resources or consultants or advisors or others that just somehow those aren't all getting connected together in a repeatable, systemic way. So I think I've at least seen the recognition of that as something that gives me a lot of encouragement that we're going to hopefully move forward quickly this year, next year.
Yeah, we have a lot of the raw ingredients in place, and a lot of regions don't.
That's right.
I actually, you didn't mention this in the bio, nor should you have, but I don't know if you know it exactly, but part of my venture career when I was at Beringia, I was in the state of Michigan for about 5 years, and we had raised. This was right as the recession had kind of started in 2008. And Michigan was in a recession before the rest of the country.
Absolutely.
Folks may not remember, but General Motors had gone bankrupt, and that impact cascaded through that economy in such a massive way. And not only Michigan, but the whole Midwest. But they had this huge dependence on the automotive sector, and it was a massive wake-up call to really all of the major stakeholders in that region that they need to break this dependence on the auto sector, and they wanted to have solutions for that. So they created, there literally was about $1 billion that moved from both government, public and private money to help solve the problem. And it did it in a lot of different ways, and we can kind of get into it. But they were focused on diversifying the economy into technology, healthcare, and clean tech at that time, which were made sense for that region given the manufacturing base that they had there and the strong engineering talent for the auto sector. But you hear this, it takes a village sort of comment. There were a lot of pieces that needed to come in place and that were in sync. And I'm normally not like a big government sort of person, but the government in Michigan actually did a pretty good job of keeping people aligned and getting the interests focused. And it really channeled all these disparate efforts. Or what we have here are a lot of disparate efforts that are not coordinated.
That's right.
There, they had a very coordinated effort. It wasn't totally tops down, but it was, they really focused on getting the active people together, and there was a lot of money to make things happen. So a lot of startups got funded that wouldn't have gotten funded otherwise. There were just community building activities. The universities were really leveraged in a way that I don't think we're leveraging the universities here in Orange County the way that we could or should. There's a lot of pieces that came into place, and their economy is really improved tremendously. I mean, people may not follow like what's happened in Detroit alone, but like it went from a place that in 2008 you didn't want to end up at night, unless you knew exactly where you're going. And now, people are moving down there all the time, and it's starting to really thrive again. And I think that not that we need a turnaround here,
but we
just have like untapped potential that we haven't realized yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very vocal on a lot of my episodes about it. It is, I think, we see all the early signs that we can get ahead of the turnaround before it gets too deep. I don't think we ever become Detroit, from my perspective. As I say, it's never going to stink to live where we live. But for my kids, they want to see, I think 10 years from now, they want to see a dynamic place that they can see some sense of opportunity and hope for a future life. That's not a live by the beach and be comfortable. They want to go, mine are all going to be pushed, at least by me, to go take on big problems and try and change the world in a positive way. And every ingredient is here in Orange County to be able to do that. To your point, it's easy to be disconnected and maybe complacent about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the vision that I see CLA really being a key contributor to, but a lot of other people are now paying attention and saying, okay, we're not creating the right kinds of jobs. We're not future-proofed from a economy standpoint. Let's look at the assets that we have. Let's make investments in the right area. I think we're going to struggle here because we don't have a state government that is looking to help Orange County.
Yep.
So we've got to figure out a more creative way to finance it and get people excited about it. But the need is, I think, very instructive to take some of the learnings from what happened in places like Michigan, or I looked at, what happened in Massachusetts with the Mass Challenge 10 years ago. And this had just a profound impact on the Boston and greater Boston area over the last 10 years, and say, we have all the ingredients, as you said. Let's just get intentional about it, and then I think we can make really meaningful progress.
Yeah, and I think, yes, the state is not going to help Orange County per se, whereas in Michigan it was a statewide effort. But the Orange County government itself can help, and I'm not aware of them being particularly helpful in that regard.
Not yet, I don't think.
And then even city by city, there are things that can be done. Even with that Michigan fund that we had, our biggest investors it was the pension funds of the city and state employees. It's literally the DMV workers pension fund that was helping recycle their dollars in their community. And that was an issue, that these pension funds were investing into Bay Area venture firms, Boston area venture firms, but not in the Midwest. And they weren't, dollars weren't going to work in their community, weren't creating this situation where, it could be jobs for the children and grandchildren of these pensioners. And there is that opportunity here. The City of Irvine employees, they have a pension fund. Those dollars can get liberated to, I'm not saying move all of it into Orange County Tech and BC, but even 2% of it would actually go a really long way.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and you think about it, I had, so the chairman of the CEO Leadership Alliance was on my show last week, and we started down this path. So I think while we're on this topic, I'd love to get your perspective on it. We started on this path of talking about really money flows. And I think what we have here over the last several decades is the amount, and I look at it very simply and say, okay, do I believe there's more wealth resident in Orange County now than 10 years ago? And I think anybody you talk to would say absolutely yes.
Yeah.
But over the last 10 years, we have not created the right kind of jobs. And we have fewer startups, with less venture capital, less capital being invested into the future economy now than 10 years ago. So the money is not going to the right places to invest in our future. And so somehow we need, whether it's these pension funds or whether it's all this real estate money that's getting invested out of state, and the wealth's coming back here, but even a portion of those winnings aren't getting reallocated into the backyard, or you have people that are investing in venture firms that are outside of the area for diversification, wealth preservation, but not having any impact on our backyard. And it's how do you, in your mind, it's a long sort of preamble, but how in your mind do we really help people understand, because I do believe people care about Orange County and they want to see a thriving Orange County, but maybe they just don't understand how they can help. How do we help people understand that flow of money is critical to how a microeconomy like in Orange County works?
Yeah. I think it's through a lot of, I completely agree with everything that you say. And I think it's going to be through a lot of, really I think it's going to have to just be repeated conversation where people are going to have to hear it over and over again and understand that they can actually be part of the solution.
Yes.
But they also need to understand that it's not a quick fix. Like, this takes a long time. And one thing that's been a little frustrating, as someone like, as entrepreneurs need to raise money to fund their businesses, we need to raise capital so we can have to then in turn invest in the company. So I'm fundraising every couple of years. We're in the process of doing that now. And one thing that's a little frustrating with some of the folks that have, because there has been a huge amount of wealth creation in Orange County in the last decade, but it's been through real estate for the most part. People that were liquid or at least savvy and invested in the downturn, and they crushed it. And for a lot of these people, they're like, well, I made my money in real estate. I understand real estate. So I just want to keep investing in real estate, which I can kind of understand. However, it doesn't have this long-term view in mind that you just talked about there. Not only for those who are investing in real estate locally, if there aren't people who can buy your homes, rent your apartments, lease your office buildings, we need to have this, a vibrant ecosystem. And it's not just about collecting rents. You need to have a vibrant economy behind it. So I think some of those people will get it over time, and we just need to keep hammering at them. I don't know if there could be tax incentives. There could be some of these things that make it easier for them to to move forward with some of those ideas, but those are hard to pull off and often have unintended consequences and can be gamed. So I think it needs to hopefully just come right through those conversations.
Yeah, great.
And ideally leadership. We just need one or two people to stand up and do it. I mean, I don't want to call it the Irvine Company, but like if they don't do this kind of stuff, they don't invest into tech companies. If they did, it could move the needle tremendously. And I think it would inspire others. I mean, I think what Emil's doing at 5 Points is he's starting to take the lead, and I applaud what he's doing. And they're starting to get more involved and embrace this ecosystem. We need more of that, and I think the potential's here. But some of the big people need to step up and lead by example.
Yeah, that's great input. So let's transition back to the OKAPI a little bit and go under the hood. So you talked about 18 investments out of Fund 3. Are you guys still investing from Fund 3? I know you're working on Fund 4 as well. So where are things?
We are still
right now.
Yeah, we're still investing from Fund 3. We've got a reserve to do. Our model shows we do maybe 2 more deals, but some of that really depends on what's happening with the other 18 companies. Kind of really every couple of weeks we're weighing what's happened in those in across that portfolio for those individual companies that make us maybe want to put more capital into them than we had originally intended, or less. I mean, sometimes like there can be a fatal flaw, co-founder leaves, something happens, you're like, oh man, we're done with this business, and that will but we would have had reserves for it that may free up some reserves that can go to another business. So we're constantly balancing that really every couple of weeks. My partners and I will sit down and like look at our reserve model. But right now we're planning on doing 2 more deals in this calendar year, and we will start investing from our Fund 4 this calendar year.
Okay.
So we will, we're raising our Fund 4 now. We'll be closing that relatively soon, and hopefully it'll be pretty seamless between adding companies 19 and 20 and then moving into Fund 4.
So let's talk about a couple of key constituents. One, if people are interested in learning more about investing in the fund, at this point, still open to invest in Fund 4 if people are interested from obviously accredited investor standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, we have relatively high minimums for individuals. I mean, the way our fund's set up, we're only allowed to have 100 investors, and we have a fair amount already. So we're obviously trying to make the most of those remaining slots that we have open. But we do, the fund really got started on the back of high net worth individuals, local Orange County high net worth individuals, and a couple, Orange County corporations, as I mentioned. And we still have a lot of those individuals with us from Fund 1, 2, 3, and now into 4, which has been awesome. So we're happy to bring on some more folks. So yes, we're open to that. And sorry, that was that question?
So that was one. And then the other, obviously the more probably prevalent constituent here in my audience are the entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. So you talked about where you typically enter. What do you look at as the best way? I mean, people often will ask me, what's the best way to approach a venture capitalist? Do I approach them when I'm ready to raise funds and I'm already sort of opening my round? Should I try to build the relationship earlier on when I'm just getting my business off the ground? What do you suggest is sort of the best way for you personally, and then maybe as a person who's been a veteran of the VC world for a long time? What advice would you share to the audience? Because I know they will be very keen to hear this.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to get to that end point, and they all can be successful. I think the best way is to, or at least from my experience, is to actually start the conversation before you're actually raising the capital. It's hard if no one's met you before and they get a pitch deck and you're kind of asking to get married, off of that first
I got one of those
email.
last night.
Yeah, I get them. As you've been sitting here, I probably got some. I mean, I get those all the time.
Yeah. It was a pretty ring.
So that happens, and that's a harder way to go.
Sure.
So ideally, if start the conversation. And do so with some basic information. It doesn't need to be a full pitch deck. Just really simple. What does your business do? What's the problem you're solving? What's your solution? And kind of where are you with that? It could be really simple just for that initial conversation. But maybe taking a step forward, how that conversation starts, honestly, I think is the bigger challenge and to get right. And so the best way to do it, at least for approach me and my partners, and honestly, I could speak for a lot of VCs that I've worked with over the last 20 years, doing so via some kind of warm introduction, the best that you possibly can. It's not always possible, but LinkedIn is a great tool to start to just see the connections and find somebody that may have some connection to the VC that you're trying to reach. I personally, the way I use LinkedIn, I try to only accept connections of people I actually know, but even then it's like thousands of people. So like there's still an opportunity. Sure. There are a lot of ways to potentially get into me just from LinkedIn or other folks here in the community. And some VCs use it as a filter for two reasons. One, it's a little bit of a credibility. It's like, okay, I trust, like when you send me deals, Carrie sends me deals, and I always look
the secret's out.
Yeah. But you send me things, I look at them right away because I know like the stamp of your kind of quality and criteria, and like what I want. So I'm going to look at those right away. And I have a lot of other friends that I'm going to look at their deals in that sort of manner. That's a big help. The other piece of it is like, well, all right, this entrepreneur, I mean, the way I look at it, if they're trying to win a customer, they may not always have the contact details of getting to that person with the buying decision, for that software product that they're trying to sell. How does that entrepreneur succeed in getting to that customer? And if they are sending blanket emails like, "Dear sir, I have a solution for your problem," sort of thing, those emails aren't going to be successful in winning a customer. You have to demonstrate the hustle and creativity often to win a customer. And in this case, we're kind of a customer.
Or certainly a proxy for it.
Right.
Yes.
For capital. And I think you get a little bit of like, all right, how does this, it's kind of like that first test. It's like, well, how did they get to me? And I'm thinking, all right, this is what they did getting to me. I can get a read of what they're going to be like with customers and how successful they may be in those early phases of winning those first customers. When it's a hard sell. You're a new company with an unproven product. Our company's going to bet their reputation or operational challenges or risks that they may experience by taking on your product that may or may not work or mess up whatever else is in their tech stack. You have to be smooth about it, and the way you get in front of people is important. Now, some people, I've heard some critiques of that, saying, "Oh, it's I'll call it the old boys network or whatever." Like, "Oh, you only talk to friends of friends." No, it's not that. I mean, again, there are ways around that, but again, our networks are pretty public. We do public events and we're out there. I have done a deal where someone came up to me after I came off stage from being on a panel and they pitched me on the spot. There are 10 people lined up and the guy pitched me and I ended up doing the deal. It took months and months to get comfortable and do it, but like we will do things in those situations. We're not completely, non-approachable, and there's not only one way to do it, but that I think is the best.
Yeah, and I think the key there to distinguish, just to be clear, because I don't want people to lump you in on that quote unquote old boys network sort of idea, is because I think of it exactly the same way, which is this is the interpretation. The way I'm treated, the way I treat others, whether it's an investor or a customer or a team member or anyone, a partner, is going to be an evaluation of, is this somebody that I feel like really understands how to build this, how to scale this? Are they empathetic? Because that those all factor in.
Yeah,
those all factor in. So I think that's the key thing, is if you demonstrate creativity and respect and the kinds of things that a customer is going to want, that team member is going to want that.
Yeah, and even
Those are
just
the things that matter.
personalization. I mean, I think
right.
that was the other piece I wanted to add. If it's clear in their first sentence or two that they actually looked at our firm's website,
That's right.
and they understand some of the deals that we've done in the past, or they know that we're even in Orange County.
That's right.
Because I have a lot of, I answer every email. I actually maybe shouldn't say, there's probably someone out there that's like, you didn't answer my email.
Yeah.
But if people mention their local, even if I know there's no chance, like it's like it'd be a hair salon or something, like a deal we're never going to do because we're tech investors. I have nothing against hair salons.
That's right.
But I'll respond to all of those because I want to give feedback for folks in the community, try to point them in the right direction, something. Because I care about the people that are local.
Yes.
So I think if you personalize your messages, whether it's not just at our firm, but I think any VC you're talking to, you make it clear that like you understand who they are, what their background might be. You did again, it could take 30 seconds. All this information is very available. Everyone's bios on websites. Well, everyone has a LinkedIn. You can really quickly get a sense of what people have done and how you may or may not fit in or find some hook. Even if it's, we were joking before we came on the air about universities. I went to University of Notre Dame. There are a lot of USC fans around here that don't like Notre Dame, even if they call out of the gate like your school sucks or whatever. Like that gets my attention. I'll be like, okay, yeah, they paid attention. I want to see what this girl has to say. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of great wisdom in there, and just it's not a spray and pray. And you'll hear, of course, examples of people who said, I sent 1,000 cold emails to investors and I got 2 to respond and they ended up investing. So there's always going to be exceptions, but in general, I think you're spot on that it's about treating them, whether it's think about it as a customer or as a long-term relationship. I often say investor relationships are probably harder to unwind than a marriage. Yeah. So it's like getting married, but I would say it may even be more than getting married in this day and age as far as how to separate things if it doesn't go well. And so, coming in the right way is so key. And if you're the entrepreneur, even just deciding who you want to be in business with is really, really critical.
Yeah, and even if for folks that maybe we're trying to raise capital now, and they're like, look, I can't start the conversation with VCs, I can't take back the clock, and start 6 months ago and have these casual conversations. You can even still do that in a compressed time frame where it's like make that first intro. Maybe it's not the pitch deck, like, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, would love to talk to you. Kind of start there. And again, sometimes they may or may not get a response from those, but that at least starts it. And then, when you do hit them with your deck and here's our ask, we're looking for $2 million to do X, Y, and Z. You've at least primed the pump a little bit, even if it was an unanswered email, but they probably saw it, and that can help.
There's great advice in there. So let's, we've got a few more minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about Orange County. I know you guys are broadly across the region. There's a lot of great efforts underway to really connect Southern California because there are incredible opportunities across the entire region. One of my concerns always is that if Orange County doesn't distinguish itself, we're sort of just going to get, I'll call it table scraps between LA and San Diego, which have much more prominent names and presence on the global scale. So as you think about Orange County and what distinguishes it in your mind, what are the things that you feel like over the next 5 to 10 years, whether it's industry segments or things in our world, we're both very much in the tech world, what are the things that you think distinguish Orange County or the things that you feel like we should be focusing on as a innovation community?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is the first one that jumps to mind. I mean, we've had, I mentioned CrowdStrike earlier. We have a couple cybersecurity other cybersecurity companies in our portfolio here in Orange County, and we see more coming. It's a nice legacy of the CrowdStrikes and Cylances and the Obsidian folks here that are rolling. But there've been a number of strong cybersecurity companies here, and we see the big potential there. And UCI here is a center of excellence for cybersecurity, so there's just some great minds here. We haven't maximized that potential yet in terms of pulling that all together, but the pieces are there and it's starting to happen. And I had the CEO of one of the big companies over at my house the other day, and he's plotting his next move, and I love it that you're now seeing is kind of what needs to happen is you have these people who had the success of not only now they're pretty well off, they have plenty of capital, but more importantly they have the experience and the network to very efficiently replicate that. And usually it's not just in one thing. They kind of spread themselves across a few, and I've seen that in other ecosystems, and that's starting to happen here. I'm really excited about that. So cybersecurity is one. Property tech is another one. Anyway, we talk about real estate. This is a great place to do a prop tech business. We're actually moving one from LA down here to Orange County. They're taking up a lease here really soon down in San Clemente. There's a huge customer base of all these big real estate firms here. So if you want to be close to your customers, this is a great place to have a prop tech business. And then consumer products is an area that makes a lot of sense for this region. It's just been a stronghold in this area for a long time, going back from like the surf and skate and lifestyle brands, but like the experience and skill set of understanding how to build a brand, understanding how to manage supply chains. There are some people who really know how to build and make and scale products and run premium brands here in Orange County, and we've got one of those in our portfolio, and those are ones that we're open to. But I think that's an area that can continue to keep growing. And then the last piece I would just say is kind of in the IoT mixture of a blend of hardware and software solutions,
which could also fit on the consumer product side,
yes,
too, right? Where you have sort of smarter products,
yes,
kind of like Mophie. Or 2.0 of things where you have hardware and software embedded. Yeah.
You have the ability to do so much now with these consumer products, but usually there's some software element to it that's required. So you marrying those things together, but we're well suited to do well in that here, and just to pull from LA and San Diego. I mean, that was one thing when Mophie actually started in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we were very deliberate about choosing Orange County as our eventual headquarters. I mean, we realized once we got to about 30 million or so in revenue, we couldn't have a grow and scale a global consumer electronics company from Kalamazoo, Michigan. We just absolutely could not get the talent that we needed there. It's a town of like 80,000 people. And then it's surrounded by 30 miles of beautiful nothingness. So we needed to move the headquarters somewhere to take advantage of our opportunity. So we chose Orange County, one, because we wanted the talent base that was here in Orange County. Two, it's an amazing place to live. And three, for access to talent. We were pulling people from LA, from North County, and then obviously here in Orange County, even in Inland Empire, but it was a great pool to draw upon. I know you hear a lot of startups complain about access to talent, and it can be really hard. And I do think for software developers, no matter where you are on the planet, it's hard.
It's hard right now.
Period. But like for a lot of the other roles, other operational roles or other pieces, if you're building a business, I mean, Mophie went from 60 employees to over 300 employees in 2 years, and we didn't really have a challenge finding great talent. Doing so from here in Orange County.
I mean, great talent. I've learned great talent knows other great talent, and you got to just get that the story and the culture and the opportunity clear. And I've been pretty vocal about this. I think Orange County has amazing talent, and a lot of it's not fully utilized. A lot of people just don't see better alternatives than what they're doing. So our job as investors and entrepreneurs is to go create really compelling, change the world opportunities that these folks here will absolutely gravitate to. So yes. I believe that to my core.
Yep. I completely agree.
So Paul just giving me the time sign over here, which is always the worst part of my day, Jeff, because I love these conversations and always want them to go longer than they should. So what is it about Orange County that you most appreciate? You've been here now for, about 5 years? What do you most appreciate about it?
I mean, just personally, so I've lived in London, in Michigan, Santa Monica, East Coast, and the DC area. I've lived a lot of places. I absolutely love it here and won't be leaving. I have 4 kids. This is just a phenomenal place to raise a family. I mean, the weather aside, I love that you can have a lot of the amenities of a big city without feeling like you're necessarily smushed in a big city or dealing with all the traffic. I mean, just the other night I went to this will make it sound like I'm more cultured than I am, but we were at like the symphony at the Seagram Center, and we saw this world-class performer, and then we left it and we're home in like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that. We lived in Santa Monica and we had access to incredible things, but like just everything took forever.
It's like a 3-day trip to downtown LA, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. So it's from a lifestyle standpoint, that's been great. And I love surfing too. So like being able to be near the beach and the water. So from a personal standpoint, that's what I really love. From a professional standpoint, I just love the opportunity. It's something that I'm pitching to my investors all the time. There is, and this is selfishly from our standpoint, because there is this lack of capital of seed stage, local, early stage capital. I feel like at our firm we have a little bit of an unfair advantage where there's more opportunity than there are dollars. So we get to choose a lot of great opportunities. And I think that trend's going to happen for a long time. The opportunities are building and growing here. The pieces are coming together, and the capital's lagging. So from a business opportunity, I feel like this is a great spot to do venture capital from for another 10 to 20 years, and that's what I'm planning on doing for the rest of my career. So I feel like I'm really well suited, not only in a beautiful place, but professionally in a place that can be very
Mm-hmm.
successful in backing the entrepreneurs that can live up to their fullest potential and building the businesses they want to build, which is that's why I do what I do. I love winning. We coach basketball and got to coach against each other and share the same court for practice. And I love competition. That's one of my favorite things about venture capital is I have all these teams that are out there that are kind of playing the game, and I love when people win, and when it's the entrepreneurs that are working so hard and putting they're all in on these big opportunities. And I want nothing more than for them to experience that success that they're working so hard for, and to realize the visions that they are maniacal about. And so doing that here and supporting those folks is what I really want to do.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. It's so great. So 2 more questions. One, how do you keep yourself? I mean, change is just happening so rapidly. We live in this tech world. What are the things that you do to keep yourself sharp and sort of up on what's happening?
Yeah. Gosh, this is where I wish I had more time in the day to read and listen to more podcasts and kind of consume more content. There's so much out there, and I think that's been really helpful. But honestly, the way that I get to do it, and I'm really blessed to do it, is I get all these great business plans sent to me every day, and it's from innovative people who are trying to solve big problems in innovative ways. And honestly, sometimes I can choose a couple of those to try to geek out on and really understand. I mean, they're ones that we want to potentially invest into, but it's really when I'm taking these deep dives into these companies and understanding what is unique and different about these companies. How are they going about their solution in a new or different way? Or what are some of these, a lot of these people are, these very forward-thinking people who are thinking about, they're kind of playing things forward. Like, here's going to be the problem that needs to be solved 3 years from now or whatever it may be. And just getting to have those conversations with folks and sharing, or I guess really absorbing some of their ideas and kind of kicking around ways of like, all right, how do we create a real business out of this? I mean, I get to do it every day. Yep. So I guess that's not something great for other people to replicate unless they're at a venture firm. But that's my favorite part of my job.
That's awesome. Well, final lap, I always let the final word be piece of advice, key lesson you've learned. So as you think about these growing group of entrepreneurs here in Orange County, what's a piece of advice or key lesson you'd love to impart to them today?
Yeah. I guess I'll do 2 quick ones. One, venture capital is not for everybody.
Yes.
And I know it could be, there's a lot of media and press about it. And
Great
PR, and like big people see Facebook or whatever, and there are a lot of big companies that have become big and they raise venture capital funding. But venture is not for everybody. So, and that's maybe a separate podcast, but like, focus on, is your company a good fit for venture is kind of the first thing that, for entrepreneurs to maybe understand, because it really can dictate. I see people kind of get themselves down the wrong path sometimes, and it can be unwinding things. It can be pretty hard to unwind when they think that they're going to be set up to raise venture funding happening, and maybe it's never really going to happen because they don't really have a business that's well suited for venture capital. So one, I would just really think about your financing strategy early before you take a penny from anybody to try to understand, all right, this is one step across the stream. Where am I, where do I want to get to on the other side? And really understand, does that step make sense for you to where you think you want to go? And two, and this is one I just give to founders all the time, build a team as early as you can, and be really thoughtful about the person that you're bringing on board. We talked about, things are like a marriage, but I've just found in my experience of working with companies, it's rare that a single entrepreneur who then is a chief with lots of Indians that are kind of at their beck and call. I don't see that person succeeding all that well.
Yeah,
all that often.
Rare. Very rare.
It's usually there is a team of people, even if it's a duo. It could be just two people, but 2, 3, 4 co-founders who out of the gate are in it just as well as you're in it, where they share that same passion. They have that alignment of interest, and ideally they can cover your weaknesses and add some strengths where you don't have some, and where it's those teams that end up thriving the most. And startups are so hard, and doing it on your own is just such a challenge, period. And having folks that are there kind of getting through that early grind with you is just so critical. So a lot of people end up kind of taking partners of convenience where they show up at a meetup or whatever, and it's like someone's unemployed and they're available, I'll just take them.
Yeah, somebody who will talk to them is
right.
And
Exactly. Those usually don't work well. Just as this, meeting someone randomly at a Starbucks is probably not going to be your marital partner long term, just randomly. So be really deliberate and thoughtful on building those early teams, and do it earlier than later.
That's great. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing so much. There's so much gold in this conversation that I think we'll be able to pull out, and I know that the audience will have a lot of positive takeaways and really lessons to learn. So thank you for joining. Thanks for all you're doing here in the community. And I definitely think we want to go deeper on this whole topic of what you learned from the experience in Michigan. And how do we apply some of that here? Because I think there's so much that we can take away. So good luck with the fundraising and closing Fund 4.
Thank you.
I look forward to collaborations that we're going to have going forward. And thanks for all you're doing to help accelerate OC. Likewise,
thank you. This is tremendous what you're up to. So I love it. Thank you.
You've just listened to Accelerate OC. Join our live recordings every Tuesday morning at accelerateoc.com, or listen, like, and share anytime from your favorite podcast spot. Let's accelerate OC together.